gas? Zarvis Pol asked. Kradzi Zago shook his head.
No, the unit is not powerful enough for that. It will only take him about 10,000 years into the past. But then, when it stops, the machine will destroy itself. It may destroy Hradsko with it, or he may escape. But if he does, he will be left stranded 10,000 years ago, where he can do us no harm. Actually, it did not operate as he imagined, and there is an infinitely small chance that he could have returned to our time in any event. But I wanted to ensure against even so small a chance.
We can't be sure of that, Zarvis Pol objected. He may know more about the machine than you think. Enough more to build another like it. So you must build me a machine, and I'll take back a party of volunteers and hunt him down.
That will not be necessary, and you would only share his fate.
Then, apparently changing the subject, Kradzi Zago asked,
Tell me, Zarvis Pol, have you never heard the legends of the deadly radiations?
General Zarvis smiled. Who has not? Every cadet at the Officers' College dreams of rediscovering them, to use as a weapon, but nobody ever has. We heard these tales of how, in the early days, atomic engines and piles, and fission bombs emitted particles which were utterly deadly, which would make anything in which they came in contact deadly, which would bring a horrible death to any human being. But these are only myths. All the ancient experiments have been duplicated time and time again, and the deadly radiation effect has never been observed. Some say that it's a mere old wives' terror tale. Some say that the deaths were caused by fear of atomic energy, when it was still unfamiliar. Others contend that the fundamental nature of atomic energy is altered by the degeneration of the fissionable matter. For my own part, I'm not enough of a scientist to have an opinion.
The Old One smiled wanly. None of these theories are correct. In the beginning of the atomic era, the deadly radiations existed. They still exist, but they're no longer deadly, because all life on this planet has adapted itself to such radiations, and all living things are now immune to them.
And Hradsko has returned to a time when such immunity did not exist? But would that not be to his advantage?
Remember, General, that man has been using atomic energy for 10,000 years. Our whole world has become drenched with radioactivity. The planet, the seas, the atmosphere, and every living thing are all radioactive now. Radioactivity is as natural to us as the air we breathe. Now, you remember hearing of the great wars of the first centuries of the atomic era, in which whole nations were wiped out, leaving only hundreds of survivors out of millions. You, no doubt, think that such tales are products of ignorant and barbaric imaginations, but I assure you, they are literally true. It was not the blast effect of a few bombs which created such holocausts, but the radiations released by the bombs. And those who survived to carry on the race were men and women whose systems resisted the radiations, and they transmitted to their progeny that power of resistance. In many cases, the children were mutants, not monsters, although there were many of them too which did not survive, but humans who were immune to radioactivity.
An interesting theory, Kradzi Zago, the soldier commented, and one which conforms both to what we know of atomic energy and to the ancient legends. Then would you say that those radiations are still deadly, to the non-immune?
Exactly. And Hradsko, his body emitting those radiations, has returned to the first century of the atomic era, to a world without immunity.
General Zarvis' smile vanished.
Man,
he cried in horror, you have loosed a carrier of death among those innocent people of the past. Kradzi Zago nodded.
That is true. I estimate that Hradsko will probably cause the death of 100 people or so, before he is dealt with. But dealt with he will be. Tell me, General, if a man should appear now, out of nowhere, spreading a strange and horrible plague wherever he went, what would you do?
Why, I'd hunt him down and kill him, General Zarvis replied. Not for anything he did, but for the menace he was. And then I'd cover his body with a mass of concrete bigger than this palace.
Precisely.
Kradzi Zago smiled.
And the military commanders and political leaders of the first century were no less ruthless or efficient than you. You know how atomic energy was first used? There was an ancient nation, upon the ruins of whose cities we have built our own, which was famed for its idealistic humanitarianism. Yet that nation, treacherously attacked, created the first atomic bombs in self-defense, and used them. It is among the people of that nation that Hradska has emerged.
But would they recognize him as the cause of the calamity he brings among them?
Of course. He will emerge at the time when atomic energy is first being used. They will have detectors for the deadly radiations, detectors we know nothing of today, for a detection instrument must be free from the thing it is intended to detect, and today everything is radioactive. It will be a day or so before they discover what is happening to them, and not a few will die in that time, I fear. But once they have found out what is killing their people, Hradska's days, no, his hours, will be numbered.
A mass of concrete bigger than this place. Tobe the slave repeated General Zarvis's words. The ancient spaceport. Prince Burvanny clapped him on the shoulder. Tobe, man, you've hit it.
You mean?
Kradzizago began. Yes, you all know of it. It stood for nobody knows how many millennia, and nobody's ever decided what it was to begin with. Except that somebody, once, filled a valley with concrete, level from mountaintop to mountaintop. The accepted theory is that it was done for a firing stand for the first moon rocket. But gentlemen, our friend Tobe's explained it. It is the tomb of Hradska, and it has been the tomb of Hradska for 10,000 years before Hradska was born. End of Flight from Tommorow by H. Beam Piper.